Go. Okay. Cameras are ready. Tap the 6. It's ready.
Set?
Yep, they're recording.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Good. Good evening. Welcome to the April 23rd, 2013 meeting of the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners. We have the roll call, please.
Present is Selectman Whiteside, Selectman Holmes, Selectman Titlebaum, Selectman Slavin. Selectman Tropiano is not here. Town Administrator Derek Sullivan is here. Town Council Richard Bowen, and CETA Director Sal Pina.
Thank you. Next up, please.
Don't forget the camera.
Next will be announcements. I have none. Anybody have any announcements?
Town meeting is tonight at 7.
Mr. Holmes just wants everybody to know town meeting is at 7 o'clock tonight.
And we also hope that the is working tonight.
Mother did complain about that.
It wasn't picking up the audio last night on the broadcast.
They've assured us it's been resolved.
Very staticky.
Okay. We have no citizens for citizen participation. Consent agenda, we have no bills. We have 2 sets of minutes. They were included with everybody's packet yesterday. Hold on. Ask for a motion on the minutes of
I'll make a motion to accept
April
the
9th.
minutes of April 9th as written in
Thank
the
you.
packet.
Anything to be said? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 400.
Yes, sir.
And next.
I gotta look at the next
Yeah,
one
we'll
first.
check that. Next is the executive session.
Right, you need to move
This
it
is
along.
going to be
Have to move and hold.
this is going to be, I move to accept the executive sessions and hold the minutes of March 26, 2013 as written.
Second?
Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain, please.
Thank you.
Because 2 of those matters, I think, are
Still pending. License and permits, none. Sewer business, funding source for contract 2, we'll move that off to April 30th when we start our regular meetings. Any other sewer business? I don't have any updates on the Swiss Beach situation on the repair there. I don't think they're finished yet. We'll get that next week also. Town business, discussion with the CETA Director and vote on mass development application for site investigation funds, Tremont Nail.
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question. I should have asked it before. What was the digging in front of Cumbies and Hess this morning in the ground with gasoline smell? Good question?
Outstanding question for your first question for me. This morning, they did find some contaminants in the soil when they dug out in front of the Hess gas station. It caused us to react, to bring the DEP down, Department of Environmental Protection. They came down. We had the fire department, the Board of Health, the conservation agent. These are all required actions that we needed to take. We also brought in from Green Seal, who is our clerk of the works, we brought down their, what they call their LSP, which is their licensed site professional, who is the gentleman who is most knowledgeable about how to handle contaminants in the soil. So what essentially has happened in this case is we could have reburied that soil back into the ground, but we did not do that. We chose not to do that for a couple of reasons. One is because it wasn't very good to have underneath the surface of the road, even if it wasn't contaminated. So what we did was we brought in new fill into the area. We closed it back up. We replaced closed the area back up. And then we have that fill, which is now held off to the side while tests are being done. So it's been capped, it's been properly stored on the side, and and sealed, and it will stay in that capacity until we're able to get back some tests to determine how to properly dispose of it. But the preliminary tests indicate that it was gasoline.
Oh, yeah.
That was there, I mean, while that's a bad contaminant, it's not as bad as it could have been. It could have been other substances which would have been much worse, so.
May I continue? Yeah. Does the town fall under the same, I go back, way back, for the 21E remediation issues that
Well, the
private citizens do?
I think, let me answer that in a slightly different way. One of the issues that will be there is what's called an NOR, a Notice of Responsibility. So that it will be determined who will be responsible for that. The town, at this point, it's not clear that the town is responsible for those contaminants. So they're speaking to both Cumberland Farms and Hess. And then there are some tests that get done, which I understand can determine the age at which that gasoline was in the soil. So we'll be able to go back and look at that and see when in fact it did leak in. And that'll give some other indications as to who might be responsible.
And the other question is, obviously, when you went down, you got to be at high tide level on a storm tide. So you're actually working in wetlands, and that's why you had the Conservation Commission and the DEP?
Well, no, they're there just because of the contamination. I mean, it's a contaminant in the soil, so they would be there anyway. But there are ways for us to contain it in the ground once we identify it, and we took all of it out that we found, and then I'm blanking on the piece of the road we were working on. We put that piece back in, and we encircled it with some fabrics and some
The spongy stuffy.
yeah to go around, so to keep it all locked in. So
Thank you so much.
yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So would you like to go to my other agenda item?
Yes.
All right. So staying with the 21E topic, I have a grant opportunity that I would like to pursue, but it requires the permission of the Board of Selectmen to go forward. And so what we've done is we've prepared if I can take one of those, and we prepared a grant application to Mass Development. She's got the extra copy. There you go. So we prepared a grant application for Mass Development. Yeah, I could take that to the backside. With the help of Serped. And the grant is for $100,000 to do a site assessment on the Tremont Nail property. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. First, the Tremont Nail property had an original site assessment done by the original owner prior to the town purchasing it. But if the town were to develop it, we need to have our own site assessment. So working with Serped, we were able to put this grant application together. The amount is $100,000, and if we were to get the grant application, Mass Development, they call these things, very interesting word, they call them a GROAN, which is a grant and a loan. And the idea is if we were to sell the property within 5 years after we got it, then we would have to pay them back the $100,000. But if it goes on beyond that, they don't ask for it back. So our goal here is to look at that area and determine if there are any contaminants. If there are contaminants in the area, then we would go back to Mass Development to ask for funds to clean it. And if there weren't, then we could proceed forward with development. So this is an important step going forward if we're going to develop the property.
May I ask, what did the site assessment show prior to the town purchasing the property?
It did show some small amount of contamination, and again, I think a lot of it was if I remember correctly, because I read it a while ago, but it had to do with some oils that
Machine oil?
Machine oils, yeah.
Okay.
So there's
And what about lead
there
from the
wasn't-
nail?
Nothing like
processing?
that was discovered at the time.
And who did the
I'm not sure who did the site assessment.
Where's the Associates, page 2.
Thank you.
This is it, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Slavin.
Yes.
Oh, through you to Mr. Slavin. Alan, we're not looking at anything here like Atlas Tech, are we, in Fairhaven? To your knowledge?
No, the issue was that I'm not sure the 21E, the paperwork that I found when I was on the Tremont Nail Master Plan Committee, really covered the full facility. There was supposed to have been something done farther back, but the only paperwork I had was for a specific area. The reason why we want to do this is around where the external tank was sitting on the property. You come down the parking lot, there was a tank that was mounted up in the paved area. I think the reason we want to make sure is that when they were doing, I think it was some test boreholes, when they were contemplating doing the sewer coming across underneath and coming up to the pump station of the property from across the street, there was 1 out of 6 holes came back with some contaminants. So to be safe, we need to go through and make sure everything is clean, or else we really can't legitimately develop the property.
And one more.
Yes.
What recourse do we have to Rizzo or the sellers of the property? Because it seems to me that if you have a manufacturing plant in New England on a waterway for over 100 years, that I would bet my last 2 cents, I lost the 98 cents last night, that there is more contaminant than a barrel of something. So I'd like to know the answer to that through you, sir, to Town Council.
Yes.
Got you here.
Good evening. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Selectman Whiteside. The way 21E works is that anyone who is in the chain of title, or even chain of custody, becomes what's known as a PRP, potentially responsible party. And so every person in the chain of title who preceded us has legal liability. And now, whether they can get themselves out of that is something that they would have to show. In other words, I suppose if there were a farmer who preceded the industrial operation, perhaps that person or his or her descendants could work their way out of it.
Well, may I?
I
One-
just wanted to, I don't normally try to speak to these issues when we've got town council here, but this
You are
is
an
in my-
environmental lawyer.
This is a little bit of my wheelhouse here. The strict liability provision that leads back in time for a potentially responsible party only applies to hazardous material. It does not apply to oil and gasoline, where in order to find somebody liable or to prove that connection, you've got to tie it back to a specific release of that material at the time they owned or controlled the property. So that's the one exception there. But I mean, in a metal foundry, you can bet there's lots of interesting things that could potentially be going on there.
Okay, I only pretend to be an expert because I was a banker, a commercial banker in New Bedford for 23 years. And if I don't know what a 21E hazardous waste site is, then nobody does, because,
You had to lend on it.
No, we
Or not
didn't.
lend- or not
Yeah,
lend
I
on
mean,
it,
we
as the
lost.
case would have been.
Yeah, okay. So I'm really concerned about this particular piece of property, because the way that you answered the question, a previous speaker answered the question about the contamination, was it a small, specific area? How come we didn't dig holes in the floor of the plant to test for
You mean at the time it
contaminant?
was purchased?
Yeah.
That was a question I, at the time, asked of my mother, who was on the Community Preservation Committee at the time. An unsatisfactory answer was procured, and the Community Preservation Committee nonetheless voted 6-1 to purchase the property, or to go to town meeting and ask them, my mother being the one voted against. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
I believe town meeting also unanimously approved the purchase through the CPA program.
Was town meeting made aware of the limitations of the Rizzo study?
I can't answer that because I wasn't around at the time. I doubt it.
I don't know.
What? Anything else for council while we've got him here on this matter? Mr. Pino, why don't you,
Thank you.
anything else?
No, well, I guess one of the things is, again, prior to submitting this, I'd need to get a vote from you to authorize me to do that because of the issue, primarily because of the issue of the payback of the funds. I will just say this, that in my opinion, the Tremont Nail site, especially in terms of what I've been trying to do in terms of the development downtown and connecting the Tremont Nail site to Bessie Park, which I think is a significant issue for us. So in order to do any type of development, we need to have this piece completed. We'll never be able to develop the property without it. So from that perspective, I think it's important for us to do, and it's important for us to understand what our risks are and try to mitigate them as best we can. Serped and Mass Development, if Mass Development gives us this grant, then they are very likely to assist us in the cleanup of the property as well. And Serped strongly supports this application.
Okay, thank you. One question, what's that, I've done a few of these. What's the cap that you can, I believe, borrow? I don't believe they will necessarily give you a grant for Brownsfield remediation these days. I believe it's a low-term loan. I mean, a low-interest loan. What is the maximum amount you can borrow? Is it 3 or 500 grand? 'Cause I seem to remember doing it for 3, but I thought maybe they were going up to 5.
In my mind, I think it's 5, but I will confirm that for you.
All right.
I'll check with them and confirm it.
All right.
Mr. Peter, are we still on the list for Serped for their program as well? For brownfield remediation? I know we applied to them.
I think, I'm not certain on that one as well. My contact has been Don Sullivan over there.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this came from the meeting where we brought Mass Development and Serpent out to the site, and Nobis, who is an LSP, was also in there. So they work with Nobis, and so from that meeting generated this grant opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
One last question, I guess,
Yes.
of my compatriots here. What is the risk of what are the problems with not applying for this grant?
Property would probably, in my opinion, would stay the way it is. We really would not be able to legitimately, if we had a development opportunity to go forward, because we couldn't provide a clean bill of health on the property.
Okay. And what Mr. Pina is saying is that there may or may not be funds available to aid us in the remediation process.
Yes, the Serped, in working with Serped felt that should we be successful in getting this grant, that there would be funds available. We'd still have to apply for them, so that always leaves a possibility that we may not get them. But they felt that it was a good possibility for us, and that they would support it.
And one last question, because I'm not that quick a reader. Is this property on the National Historic Register?
I think we're trying to get it. Alan, am I correct? Is
I
it?
think they're trying to get it put into the historic district, which it's not, by the way.
I understand that,
And
but
I don't know if it's on the, I think they're trying to get it on the historic register. I don't think it's on there. Matter of fact, I'm almost positive it's not, and they're working on that.
they being,
One of the historical groups and stuff, not
Yeah.
the historical
I
society.
think the work that Johanna Rowley is doing is intended to help put it
Historical
there.
Commission is working
Yeah.
on the members there,
Yes.
thank you.
working process.
Right. Any other questions?
I think there's also, just for backup, I believe the Environmental Protection EPA out of Boston also knows about the site, and I went to one meeting they had a joint meeting with a lot of different things going on green initiatives, et cetera. And the person I met with said that if it turns out that we have an issue with the site, to contact her and her office, because they would have possible, help for us as well.
Just one last comment, which actually doesn't have to do with this. I brought copies of the TIF agreement with me, since it was approved at the meeting yesterday. So, and it requires the signatures of the board, so I'd like to leave that with you. And you can do that at some point. Thank you.
I'm not done with him. Can I ask him another question?
Come on back.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm catching up,
Sure.
obviously. And you mentioned connecting Tremont to the Bessie Park. Bessie, some of the properties in Bessie Park or adjoining Bessie Park are in the historic district. Are they on the National Historic Register?
Don't believe so. That's the Grill Lumberyard. I don't believe they are.
Okay, what about the Alden Bessie House?
I can't answer that. I'm not positive.
Are you aware that that he was at one point chairman of the stock exchange?
No, I was not.
It would be good stuff.
Yeah. Good.
Anything else?
Yeah, and yeah, just that, you know, the Merchants Way project that we're working on, we've been holding public meetings. We have the 2 public meetings remaining, one on May 13th for the businesses and the property owners, and then on May 18th for the public. And in that design, one of the things that we're exploring is actually a boardwalk that would run the length of the river, and then there's a rail spur that runs into Tremont Neal, so we'd be able to connect back on land and bring it in, and that's how we plan to connect. So I appreciate you bringing to my attention the Alden House.
Do you have the book Touring Around Buzzards Bay?
I do not.
Would you like to borrow it?
I would love to borrow it.
And you have to promise to return.
I
One other
promise.
question. Can somebody, it may not be you, sir, tell me, obviously the rail is being worked on because they've dumped a whole bunch of, what do you call those things? Thank you, ties. What is the time frame on that?
To answer the question, they are basically trying to get the Cape Flyer project to go to Hyannis ready for Memorial Day to start running. So they have been given, I forget the dollar amount, but they've been allocated, I think it was $2 million?
It was $6 million.
$6 million now, to go ahead and go through the whole line, up and down from Lakefield down, to get the line in condition, which means removing certain ties, putting bed back in, replacing rail when necessary, making sure all the crossings meet the standards they have to meet now. Because they want to move us up to, I think it's level 3 or class 3, which there's an issue about the speed, because that speed is almost 60 miles an hour.
I read somewhere that it was 57 or 59 miles an
59,
hour, and I think that's
yeah.
not an appropriate, that my comment would be, I think it's a great idea to have the train go, but not at that speed.
There's a meeting at April 25th, which I think is Thursday,
Town Hall, 10
Town Hall,
o'clock.
10 o'clock on this issue.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
if I could just add that one of the key components of the Merchants Way work that we're trying to do is to one of the key components of the Merchants Way work that we're trying to do is to revitalize the train depot. GATRA has contributed $5,000 to a grant that CETA received for the concept drawings, and the goal would be to revitalize that and turn it into a multimodal or intermodal center. And my hope is that we will be applying for a MassWorks grant in September. Because we'll have these drawings, and we will be looking to see if we can get funding so that by next spring, hopefully, we can be making an impact on that and give people a reason to stop in Wareham.
And also a reason for the train to slow down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm probably the only person in the room who ever traveled from that train station to Boston and back.
Probably.
Have we explored other locations? Because parking to me is a real issue downtown.
Yeah, yes, we have. There's an intermodal center study that was done back in 2006, and it recommended 2 places. One was the Tremont Nail, which was voted down. The other was the current train depot. And there was a one throwaway line which had to do with should the fire station ever become available, that may be an appropriate site. I happen to believe it is the best site of those 3. And I think in the short term, the thing that we can do that's probably most effective and most efficient is to restore the current train depot in the short term. I think that we will certainly need to plan for later on, but I also think that Wareham would not necessarily be a regional site. And so the parking issue is something that we really need to look at closely. While I agree we need some parking, we may not need the kind of parking that I think people imagine.
Okay. And I guess I would throw one more at you.
Sure.
Seems to be my evening.
It's a pleasure.
The property down by Walmart,
Mhm.
the old Walmart,
Mhm.
about to be old Walmart,
Mhm.
when that becomes underused, there is certainly already a rail line that goes behind it. There is certainly already a parking lot there. It is very clearly available to the, the onset village. You could have trolleys from that location to Onset Village for the fishing and the beaches and that kind of thing. You could also have trolleys to the, I call it the dinner train.
Mhm.
But it seems to me that you already have a location that is going to become underused. Let's not pave any more parking lots. What was the name of that woman who sang that song?
Actually, the project that I'm working on reduces the asphalt in the area by 43%, so.
Nice.
Thanks. Yeah,
Well,
all set?
all
Well,
set?
we need a
Anything
motion?
else? We do.
I'll make it. I move that the selectmen authorize signing the Brownfields Redevelopment Fund site assessment application in the amount of $100,000 as presented by Mr. Pina.
Second.
Quick, just for discussion, the chairman of the board is always required to sign it.
May I amend my motion, sir?
Yes, you may.
So amended. Amend your
Second.
second. Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 4-0-0.
Okay. Great.
Hold on a second.
I actually had my new
Get the train station, change the Senate to an
change the what to?
R. Senate to an R. She lives, she represents a district 5 miles that way. Ain't good.
Yes.
Why are you waving at me, sir?
Thank
We
you.
have a different,
On
we
your
have a
own
different
time.
set because she's representing.
Next item up will be the discussion on guidance to the town administrator for next year. At this time, I think we'll pass again till April 30th, unless
Yeah.
someone has something to say.
Well,
May I? I have been informed that unfortunately, the chief in the Onset Fire District is very ill.
Yes, he is.
And it seems to me that it might be a very good time for whoever is going to have this discussion about regionalization of efforts and consolidation of efforts and saving money. So at a relatively near future agenda, I think I'd like to have maybe some of the, what are they, commissioners from the 2 districts.
if
Can we
you-
come then? Can we ask them to do that?
We can invite them.
Yeah.
If you would like to, actually, if you could
Write it up.
articulate your thoughts in an email, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next up.
Discussion on budget for 2014 fiscal year.
Well, just a reminder, we haven't put up the notice yet, but there will be a joint meeting on May 1st, next Wednesday, with the school committee to discuss the budget. And once we have the details of exactly where that's going to take place ironed out, it will be noticed, and we will proceed from there. We will, of course, have a meeting next Tuesday prior to that meeting, so we'll have another opportunity then to discuss what we're going to do going in. So I would suggest thinking about some of the items we wish to bring up, discussing them perhaps on Tuesday, and then being prepared to discuss them some more on Wednesday. Yes.
One of the benefits of living in the town of Wareham is that there are 3 different political entities that contribute to running the town in terms of the water and fire districts, okay, as well as the municipality itself. In terms of providing service, I don't think we have a quarrel with anyone who provides the service. In fact, I've been doing some homework over the past week asking different medical service providers what they think of our EMT service, having used it myself a few times. And it is known as, the EMTs and the paramedics are known as some of the best in the Southeast region. Unfortunately, our equipment is not. And I think it's really the responsible thing for us to do to bring forward the issue of whether we want to continue to provide ambulance service. If we do, how we do, and if there's another way of providing it by asking someone else to either take over the running of the service or consolidate with someone else to do that, or possibly even leasing or taking it to bid.
I would suggest that we put that on as an agenda item within the next 2 or 3 weeks and start the discussion on that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Slavin.
Nothing else? Any other town business not anticipated within 48 hours?
Yeah, anybody know what that ruckus was last night? In the finance committee.
Oh.
Walking out and... Didn't seem
I don't
like a
think
good
that I'm going
news.
to speak any more tonight. I've done all the talking I'm going to do tonight.
Why did you take the mic now? Were you going to answer my question? Oh, you're not. Oh, you want to? If this was all prearranged, why are they so upset? I don't understand. I missed something.
I'm going to say that, without having a long discussion back and forth, that the issue of them not being able to have a discussion on the motion, you know, where there was no discussion allowed because of the table and the way it was done. And I checked with the town council, Bowen, and town meeting times listed up very clearly that there is no discussion. They had an issue with that. They weren't prepared for that, and that was an issue in itself. And I think possibly that there was some information that came from the DOR about, again, not doing something, which is the unbalanced budget. And I'm not sure that message got out to the Finance Committee in full. And I'd say those are 2 issues that caused some of the disturbance. And I think, again, is a communication issue. It wasn't anticipated, nor was it thought ahead of time that there would be an elimination of any discussion on the point. It ended up, because of the way the motion was done, town meeting times doesn't allow for discussion.
So the short answer is, last Wednesday night when we spent 2 hours in the school and they had all this planning going on and poaching of the board and polling of the boards and the town moderator getting up, telling us how she's going to run town meeting the week before it happened, was a waste of time, basically, because none of that happened last night.
Well, I will say, to somewhat of your question, Mr. Holmes, nothing that I said last night regarding the communications from the Department of Revenue on this issue of an unbalanced budget, last night should have been a surprise because I raised those very same issues the previous Wednesday.
Well, that's what I thought we all heard at 6 o'clock when you were off having all these meetings that we didn't know about our sanction. You said that everybody was in agreement, or at least that you had had these meetings. And so when I got up to stretch my leg, you can imagine my surprise when I come back and have the finance committee was gone. And Mrs. Whiteside was trying to aid in that to get people back together, but it didn't seem to work. So somebody was upset about something that happened here. And we do have 3 boards that have to work together on getting this budget thing done. It seems 1/3 of that now is fractured.
Yes.
The responsibility for creating the scalpeled budget is between the Board of Selectmen and the school committee, who then give the figures to Mr. Sullivan, who then,
Understand, I know how it works.
Yeah,
I'm
but
just saying
so
that one
I-
of
but
those
I
boards
would
is now
say-
fractured.
I would say that we can't answer for somebody else's action.
And just as a sidebar, at Wednesday, that particular information from the DOR and stuff, what didn't come down till after the discussion was that that basically there was a good chance we were going to come in with an unbalanced budget. And town administrator, as is his responsibility, by charter, by law, and by, Mass General Law, reached out to the DOR to find out what our options were if that was the case. And at that point there, the DOR did come back and I think in very firm terms said they would be greatly concerned if we came back with an unbalanced budget. So unfortunately, what was discussed on Wednesday came back a day or 2 days later with the answer we shouldn't be doing it. We've already done this once before, not listening to them, so I know I wasn't prepared to go against their wishes again.
Just checking. We have to go back and sit with them in 20 minutes.
Yes, we do.
We are ladies and gentlemen, and we represent the town of Wareham. We represent every citizen of this town, whether he or she is a minute old or 110 years old. Our job is to do the best for the most with what we have. That is our job. That is what the Board of Selectmen have to do. And I, having been a school teacher as well as a parent, know that you catch more bears with honey than you do with vinegar.
Just as a quick note, also, we represent the town of Wareham. Everybody keeps forgetting that it's the town of Wareham, made up of a bunch of different departments and its citizens, etc. So the bottom line is we also represent the school as well as the operational side and every other part of town. And I think people keep forgetting that. It's not an us versus them ever. Town administrators report.
Thank you. Today I'd sent an email out with an attachment to the Board of Selectmen. After sending out or notifying the public that we were searching for a town accountant, we had received 6 applications. Of the 6, 4 had municipal experience. Excuse me, 2 had municipal experience. Of those 2, one was the current interim town accountant, Ms. Judith Lazan. We interviewed her and the other candidate with municipal experience. I gathered the information from the committee, and I took the time to look into the comments and such from the interview committee, and it has been my decision to hire Ms. Judith Lazan as our permanent town accountant. Today I am notifying the Board of Selectmen of that. There is 15 days to accept it.
Just,
Anything to be said?
I just want to, there were 6 applicants or 8 applicants, you said?
6 applicants altogether, 2 with municipal experience.
Okay, thank you. And when is that appointment effective, or whatever it is?
15 days. We have 15 days from today.
Okay,
So
thank you.
To ratify or reject.
This is the
Thank you.
person who's the whiz-bang know-it-all about, what's the name of that system?
Vadar.
Vadar.
Vadar,
She
this
is-
is the person.
She knows the Vadar town accounting system, has been using it, and she is also the one, when we lost our former town accountant, helped step up and make sure that we were able to set our tax rate.
If the board wishes, we can affirm it, or we can wait till our next meeting, which is April 30th, which will still give everybody time to review it, which is a little more comfortable, I think.
I would prefer
suggest
that.
waiting until Mr. Tropiano's back.
It was Mr. Selectman Slavin, Selectman Winslow, and from the Finance Committee, Mr. McDonald.
I was an alternate, basically.
Correct.
Mrs. Winslow was the actual number.
And yes, for the record, I would not ask for the vote tonight. I only sent out the information today, and I don't feel that you've had enough time to digest it.
Right, and I would prefer that Mr. Tropiano be here as well.
That fits into the reorganization, how? If
The-
approved?
If approved, we would have we would have a town accountant. This one at the hiring at 70,300 would be approximately 23,000 less than the last town accountant we had hired. And we would also dissolve or not dissolve, we would not fill the position of the assistant town accountant.
What is that position range?
For salary?
Yes.
That is it's a part-time position, of which the salary is up to 38,000. If it were full-time, it would be 50,000 and probably up to 52, 53.
Thank you.
One more comment.
Yes.
I would like to publicly thank you for your excellent ability to answer questions, answer them correctly, answer them concisely, and answer them professionally last night. I was extremely pleased that we have a town administrator who did a fine job. I sent you an email this morning. I came in personally to tell you that, but I want to say that in front of my peers as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
Now, don't jinx me.
Tell you how, keep it short and sweet
He did.
for the bears. That's my number 1 team.
Last item is the liaison reports, and since we met last night, there can't be any today.
What?
There are no liaison reports, nobody's gone to a meeting today, so we'll pass on that one. So I would ask the motion for adjournment.
Done. I make a motion to adjourn, sir.
Second?
It's not your job.
I didn't say so.
We have a second?
Second. See, 1 second.
All in favor?
See?
Aye.
400.
See what he does?
Motion by Judy, second by Steve. Thank you all.
Already there, baby. So Frankie jump ship. He's not the only one. I think there'll be more to that.
The microphone. We're done.